Hey everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to Little Mountain Ranch. I'm really happy to have you here with me today, where we are going to do a little bit of a different type of garden tour than we have done so far this year. I've been making efforts to do a garden tour every week so that I could bring you along with my Zone 3B garden in the central interior of British Columbia, Canada, with around 110 frost-free days, right from the very beginning where we start our seeds all the way through until the final vegetable is harvested out of the garden. I've been really enjoying these tours, but one of the things that I realized is that I tend to share with you, and I think this probably seems understandable, but I tend to share with you the things that I'm really excited about in my garden tours, the things that are growing well, the things that are looking beautiful, and I think sometimes that can give the impression that my entire garden is looking that good, and that is not the case. So I have a membership community, and one of my members posted in our forum saying that she was feeling really discouraged because she had started her very first garden. It was doing really well, and now some of the plants are struggling, and she was just kind of wanting to throw in the towel, just not feeling good about it at all. So I responded, oh my goodness, hi dogs, good morning, good morning, how are you? Coming for their morning scratches. Whoa, okay. Let's just calm down. Don't knock the camera over. Anyway, I responded with a video where I took her around and showed her some of the things in my garden that were not doing very well, or just entire failures altogether, and she found that super encouraging. So I thought we would do the same thing today, where I could share with you, I'll show you some of the beautiful things too, of course, but I will share with you some of the challenges that I've had this year and some of the things that just didn't work out, or things that I dropped the ball on. This spring was absolutely crazy, so incredibly busy, and I did not have as much time as I usually have to focus on the garden, and there were quite a few things that didn't, let's say, thrive very well in the garden. So I wanted to show those to you today in hopes that it can be a little bit of an encouragement to you that some seasons are just not meant for having an abundant, beautiful garden. Some are. I am hoping that we're going to have a little bit of a shift in the busyness of life right now, and I'm going to be able to devote more time to my garden because it does bring me so much joy. But some seasons just are not made for an abundant garden, or other aspects of your life. Maybe you're not a gardener, but there's other areas of your life that that maybe you love, but have had to be pushed to the lower on the priority list because other things take precedence. So we're gonna start with this garden that you can see back here. If you'll remember back at the beginning of the spring, I was very excited about planting a beautiful cut flower garden back here. I had a vision, just picture this, of 7 or 8 different rows of multicolored blooms, all different varieties of flowers, tall sunflowers across the back. That's the north side of the garden over on that side. And then staggering, or not staggering, but having kind of tall flowers, less tall. This, I'm not explaining this right. The short flowers on the front, tall flowers on the back, medium-sized flowers in between. Oh my goodness. Anyway, that's what I had envisioned for this garden. I even started hundreds and hundreds of flowers to go into this garden. So as you can see, that didn't happen. So let me show you what did. So here we are up at what was supposed to be the beautiful cut flower garden, and it is not. As you can see here, it's looking a little ramshackled right now. The weed barrier that's laid out in these pathways, I ended up running out of pegs. Dan's actually picking up some more pegs for me today so that I can have it all looking at least nice and tidy. But obviously this is not a cut flower garden. So what this is an area where all of the vegetables that I have planted in here, I had planned to start a new garden for these particular crops. So on the bottom there are 3 rows of potatoes, and there's 2 rows of potatoes in each one of those rows. And I had shared with you that I had scab in my potato patch last year, which is what this was my potato patch last year. Scab is a bacteria that stays in the soil for potentially for years, and it is exacerbated by drought conditions though. So if you do have scab in your soil, you don't have an alternative to plant it somewhere else. If you keep your soil well watered throughout the season, you'll have less issues with blight at the end of the season. You also want to make sure that your nitrogen levels aren't too high in your soil, because that can also exacerbate them. And I think there's an alkalinity issue within soil as well that can also affect scab. But either way, what I should have done is planted these potatoes somewhere else. It is recommended to rotate your crops when it comes to growing potatoes. And sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't. This year I obviously did not do that. I was planning on starting a new garden entirely for my potatoes and my onions this year, but I didn't have time to do that. And I ran out of space in my main garden, which is down over yonder there. We'll head down there in a minute and I'll show that to you. But I didn't have room in there to plant all of these potatoes. So it was either lose the potatoes altogether or plant them up here where it wasn't ideal. So they went up here and I'm sure they're going to do just fine. They're actually growing great and I'm making sure to keep them well watered. I also had 1,000 onion seedlings that I needed to plant somewhere. So those also came up here. So there's 3 rows of onions and there's 4 rows of onions in each one of these rows. Tons of onions, very happy I was able to get them in the ground, but not all of them. Hello, Archie. We did get our fence done here and our horses and a couple of our milk cows are up in this pen, which I just love because I can see them from the house. So that's Archie there. But anyways, I still have a tray of onion seedlings that are looking really sad. You can also see that I have really messy looking weed barrier. That's just because we just rolled it out, stuck what pegs we had in it to stop the grasses from coming up in the pathways. Normally I mulch this garden with well-rotted hay, but I didn't have enough this year. So this is what it is. It will help with the weed management this year, so that's a good thing. Like I've mentioned before, weed barrier is not my favorite aesthetic in a garden, but it does certainly work to keep the weeds out if you don't have time for weeding, which I currently do not. So that is what it is. So now let's head down to the main garden. Fortunately, the main garden is starting to look better than it was about 2 weeks ago, but there's still some things down there that need my attention. I feel like I'm finally starting to get on top of the weeds in my garden. Weeding is something that I actually really enjoy. Having beds that are weed-free is something I really, really enjoy. So I am just about on top of that. I spent the last week kind of working my way through the garden and getting everything weeded. So that feels fantastic. The main garden is just about fully planted out, but I did have some issues with germination this year with my beets. Look at the spotty germination. There's huge areas here that just don't have any beets at all. And I realized when this garden got weeded that I didn't plant this whole entire side for whatever reason. The rutabagas and the turnips are looking great though. That is not a surprise because the germination on rutabagas and turnips is usually always fantastic. So that's good. But I am going to be planting some late beets. Right now it's a little bit late for us, but the nice thing about beets is they can handle a little bit of frost and they can stay in the ground even when the ground starts to freeze. So I'm going to start some more beets in this path within the next couple of days, or in this bed rather. This is the first time I have ever grown anemones and they are absolutely stunning. They close up in the afternoon and then open back up in the morning. So far, this one is on day 4, I think, and it still looks gorgeous. I have a red one that's about to open up here. And look at that. My anemones should have been put in the ground 2 weeks before I actually did, so they have very short stems, and that's something that can happen if plants don't have adequate root space at the beginning when they should have been put into the ground. When you do put them in the ground, they'll kind of bolt up their flower, and usually it'll have a short stem, but that's okay. They're so beautiful. I don't mind that. My beans that we planted together, I don't remember when that was, a week and a half ago or so, all came up here. The pickling cucumbers are looking good, so I'm happy with that. The nighttime temperatures and actually the overall temperatures have kind of been fairly moderate this spring, or at least in the last 3 or 4 weeks. We haven't had any risk of frost or anything like that, and no temperatures in the last week or so since those germinated below around 8 degrees Celsius or so. I'll put the Fahrenheit on the screen here for you. Tonight it's supposed to dip down to 6 degrees, and as you can see, I am wearing a jacket. It is 7:30 in the morning, but it's pretty cool right now, and I'm really glad that the nighttime temperatures stayed a little bit warmer because beans do not like germinating in cold soil. So at 6 degrees is chilly, but at least it's not frost, because if we were to get frost, it would kill all those beans off, and I didn't plant that many. So really happy with that. The squash that are planted in along the side and back there, You can see all the frondy things that are growing up right over there. That's actually my asparagus patch, which did quite well this spring. But beside that, we have the squash, and they are growing great. The broccoli and cauliflower that are growing back here are doing fantastic, especially the ones where I used the wool. I used raw wool as a mulch, and these ones are twice the size of the ones beside. I have a lot of theories about why that is, but I think it primarily has to do with the fact that the roots are being able to stay quite cool during the daytime. We've been having actually fairly hot weather during the day, and broccoli and cauliflower are cool crops, so they prefer their roots to stay cool. The tops can get hot, but the roots need to stay cool. And I think that this mulch is helping to keep them cool. It's also retaining the moisture. It's also feeding the soil with some nitrogen from the manure that was on that wool. So for all of those reasons, probably a few that I'm not thinking of right now as well, this broccoli is doing phenomenal, which makes me really happy. I am going to have to get in here into the mulched bed and pull out all the quackgrass, because I have noticed that the quackgrass is also thriving with this mulch, but I'm hoping because the soil is going to be moist underneath there that it'll be easy to pull out the rhizomes, so that hopefully I can just get on top of it and it won't come up again this year, but we'll have to wait and see on that. I planted some new chives here, and as you can see, they've been all munched down. I also planted some beautiful straw flowers in here and some cosmos, and you can see that those have also been munched down as well. And that is due to a couple of rabbits that we have. So we have had a couple of free range rabbits around our barn for years now, and we absolutely love them. They are super cute, and they have never come in my garden in the summertime. For whatever reason, we have no idea why they started doing it this year, but they started coming into my garden this year. We have caught those rabbits. They are no longer able to get into my garden, and the wild rabbits we have never come down this low, so I've never even seen a wild rabbit in or around my garden. So that problem is going to stop, but they definitely had their way with a few of the plants in my garden. They really love fennel that you can see here. They've munched that off, but since we caught them, there's all this new beautiful growth on the fennel, and it just kind of kept them pruned back and didn't seem to bother them at all. So that's good. They also had some fun munching on my celery. Fortunately, not too much, and they seem to be doing okay now. Oh, here's some more plants that need to go into the ground. So these are lettuces that I started that I haven't obviously planted yet. I have some lettuce over here that's going to be ready to harvest soon, but these guys need to get in the ground. It is getting warm now, which makes me happy. I love the heat. I love the sunshine. We are supposed to get some rain tonight and rain every night for the next week, which the garden is going to absolutely love, and so is our hay back behind us here. But I love the sun, so I'm going to soak up every minute I have with it. The number of trays of seedlings that I have had that I just kind of kept walking past thinking I'll get to those eventually is outrageous this year. There was probably, I don't know, at least 10 trays of seedlings that definitely suffered from my lack of attention. I noticed I missed one of the sweet peas out of this tray. So I had 2 trays of sweet peas that I started early. It's not necessary to start sweet peas in seedling trays because they actually can handle fairly cool temperatures and can go into the ground when the ground is still cool in the early spring. But I just didn't have anywhere prepped to grow them, so I started them in seedling trays. And then once I got the garden planted out, I don't know why, but I feel like I ran out of space this year more so than I have in past years. I had nowhere to put these seedlings, and it was about 2 or 3 days ago that I just realized they're either just going to die in the trays or I was just going to have to stick them in wherever I could. So I put them in over here. The artichokes that you can see here were also kind of an afterthought. I wasn't sure what I was going to plant in here. I had some artichokes, was going to put them in the high tunnel, ran out of space in the high tunnel, so I put them here. And then I took a bunch of the sweet peas and I stuck them all the way along the back. And I have a piece of fencing that I'm going to use. I'm just going to lean it against the side of the greenhouse here and let the sweet peas grow up that. And I think it'll look pretty. I am glad I found a place to put them because otherwise they would have ended up where my seedlings go to die. This spot here, beside my little seed starting greenhouse that I have here, this is where seedlings that don't end up in my garden go to die. I just feel terrible. Honestly, every time I throw anything back here, I have a little twinge of guilt about it because I put so much effort into starting my seedlings. But sometimes they don't thrive, or I end up like this year with just not having enough time to deal with them all. I did give away tons of seedlings this year, but there were some that were just too far gone by the time I actually got around to dealing with them. So they ended up back here. You can see the box there of garbage and the sticks there. Those are things that I was taking out of my high tunnel probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And they've just been sitting there waiting for me to deal with, which I haven't yet. This year has been a little bit humbling, I'll be honest, because for the last couple of years, I don't have young children at home anymore. And that has really shifted where I can put energy because I've been able to spend a lot more time out in the garden, making it beautiful, kind of bringing all my garden dreams to life. And I have really enjoyed that. This year has not been that kind of year. And I expect that there'll be more years like this in my future if my past is any indication of what's to come. So there is going to be times that I just won't be able to garden. And maybe there'll be times where I just am not able to garden at all. And I just wanted this hopefully to be an encouragement to those of you out there that are maybe at a point in your life where, or at a stage in your life, or in a season, I guess is a better way to put it, where you're not able to get as much done or focus on some of the things that you'd like to focus on because other things are taking your attention. Okay, so now that we've covered all of the things that have not been going super great this year, let's talk about some of the things that have been, because there has definitely been some successes. Behind me here, this little bed of dahlias is one of those things that we're not quite at the point of success yet because we're just getting buds right now, but it is something that I am really happy with. It's the first time that I've ever started dahlias before, and I'm happy with it. The only thing that I have noticed is that because I used just kind of straight up potting soil in here and I didn't add any of my own compost or anything like that, is that I am having to fertilize this bed. In fact, later on today, I'm going to be giving it some Gaia Green all-purpose fertilizer. I have a cow over there we're weaning her calf right now and she's being very noisy. Can you hear her back there? Anyway, I'm going to put a little bit of fertilizer in the top part of the soil here so that these flowers can get the boost that they need in order to bloom beautifully. But that is something that I would definitely consider a success. I showed you when we first came into the garden, the wool compost, or the wool mulch rather, that is definitely looking like it's going to be successful. My onions are doing fantastic. There's a few weeds in this bed, but it's not too bad. The onions themselves, though, are looking wonderful, and I'm really happy about that because if you'll remember last year, I didn't plant nearly enough onions and we ended up running out midwinter. Maybe even it was early winter, I can't remember, but we did run out. This year, I do not think that's going to be the case, barring some unforeseen circumstance. I think we're going to have more than enough onions for the year, which is fantastic. I use a lot of onions. I probably use onions just about every day in some recipe or another. So very happy about that. I would consider that a success. The brassicas are looking great. The garlic is looking fabulous. Some nice big looking stalks there. We won't be harvesting this for another month, but it looks great. The Chinese cabbages are looking fantastic. So are our Copenhagen market cabbages. Oh, I'm so excited. When I was just standing over there by the cabbage patch, I noticed that we have scapes coming on here on our hardneck garlic. So that's fantastic. This is about the size that you want your scapes to go to. And the reason that you want to pick these babies off is because this is what will eventually turn into the flower. And a lot of energy goes into producing the flower and the seed. And it is better to have that energy go down into the bulb and make a nice big garlic bulb. So make sure that you pick your scapes when they start coming on. The scapes are just starting to come on in this garlic right now. So I'm gonna leave it for another probably week. and then we'll be picking scapes, and I'll show you what I am going to turn those scapes into when we get to that point. On the subject of green stalks, this one is actually doing great. So I did fertilize this green stalk as well. So we have some beautiful sweet alyssum, but it's these guys, this red against the green here just really stands out, the geraniums. And I have one on every level, and I just think they look beautiful. I actually run my heater at night in the high tunnel just to keep the nighttime temperatures in here up. And we're gonna go open the back door. I have a heater back there as well, so I was just turning that off, opening up the back door, and it is so amazing how quickly the high tunnel will cool down because of the way that we've positioned it. I've mentioned this before, but I do think it bears repeating, is when you orient your high tunnel, the best positioning, in my opinion, in my experience, is to face it so that when your openings, you're on both sides, that one side faces the prevailing winds, so that when your breezes come through, it runs through and helps to cool down your high tunnel in the heat of the summer. This has been one of the ways that I feel like I have avoided some of the other problems that people can experience with growing in high tunnels, where blossoms fall off the plants because it just gets too hot, is because even right now the temperature has dropped so much just opening the back and front doors, and there is a breeze that you can actually feel that's blowing through this high tunnel. Of course, we also have the shade cloth. This is a 30% shade cloth that's on the high tunnel. That also makes a big difference. I usually put that on as soon as we start getting into hot summertime temperatures. And I have roll-up sides, but honestly, I don't use the roll-up sides that often unless it's super hot outside, because these back and front doors with the cross breeze keeps it cool enough. I am so happy with the way that my high tunnel is doing. We actually have tomatoes forming on our plants right now. So if I didn't mention this at the beginning of the video, we have around 110 frost-free days. And I did mention that we're gonna get down to 6 degrees tonight. So we have really cool temperatures sometimes all the way throughout the summer. So growing heat-loving plants like tomatoes and peppers can be a challenge. Figuring out when to start my seedlings in the spring, along with having a high tunnel, has been a game changer for me as far as being able to produce really good heat-loving plants here in my northern garden. Sometimes I must admit to having my heart fill with a little bit of envy when I see gardeners in the south this time of year where their plants, they're already harvesting out of their garden, even harvesting tomatoes, ripe tomatoes. Yeah, anyway, that can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge. But I had a meeting with my membership community here in the high tunnel the other night. I was showing how to prune tomatoes, and several people from southern areas said that my garden was further along, or my tomato plants were further along and larger than theirs were. So that made me feel pretty good. But anyway, I do have some beautiful tomatoes growing. Oh, my heater's clicking back there. Some beautiful tomatoes already growing here. Let me show you close up. We have some cherry tomatoes coming on. Beautiful Marina's Praise, which is one of my favorite tomato plants because it's one of the few tomato plants that has variegations on their leaves like this, so the multicolored leaves. And I just think they look beautiful. It's a beautiful tomato and it tastes really good too. I get these ones from Moonglow Gardens in Alberta. I'm going to give my trellis a shake here so that I can pollinate all of these tomato flowers. Tomato flowers are self-pollinating, but they do require a little bit of vibration to get the pollen in the right spot. Don't have a lot of tomatoes right now, but I do have lots of flowers coming on, so that is exciting. If you want to feel really good about yourself as a northern gardener, grow some of these. Some of these micro dwarf tomato plants. I have already had 2 ripe tomatoes off of these little plants, if you can believe it. They are tiny, they don't produce a lot, but they do beautifully in a green stalk planter. I have 2 levels of the green stalk that are planted out with them this year, and they are going to give me tomatoes way before my larger tomato plants are going to be able to. I definitely highly recommend these little plants for a little bit of a morale boost early in the season if you're in the north. I have 2 other plants that I am super excited about the fact that I have so far been successfully growing them this year. One is the eucalyptus. So I just brought these eucalyptus down and potted them in this larger pot because I was doing some research on growing eucalyptus, and apparently they prefer a really large pot when you're growing them. This will be a house plant. This will come in the house in the winter time, but when you're growing them in pots like this, I started these from seed back in January, I think. So they're very slow growing, but they're starting to look pretty good. I'm really excited about that, and they smell really good. So we'll see if I can get it through the winter, transferring it from being in here in the high tunnel into the house, but I'll keep you updated about that. And then we have my ginger over here that wasn't doing super great, so I fertilized it, making sure to keep it really wet. And I have noticed that all of a sudden I'm getting lots of new shoots happening on here. So there's more over there, so that is exciting. And now that we're going to get some heat, because ginger loves heat, I think this is going to take off. My okra, friends, I do not think that I am going to get okra. I have had so many cold nights this spring, and every time I come out here and it's been really cold at night, these leaves are just shriveled up. It doesn't even need frost. It just needs cold temperatures. It's a very, very sensitive little plant, and the leaves just fall off. So it keeps trying to send out new leaves, as you can see here. I'm just going to let this go and see what happens, but I'm not feeling very hopeful that I'm actually going to get okra. Remember when we planted these guys the other day? So these are all of my different melons that I have. Happy to say that keeping them covered with these little covers has really helped them get a little boost. They were super tiny when I put them in here. A few weeds in there. So I am going to just keep them covered at night, but I have been uncovering them during the day because they don't need that extra cover, but they're looking good. I popped this little bush delicata squash into the high tunnel probably only about 4 or 5 days ago, and it is very happy. I put another one over there too. I have never grown a pepper plant that has a purple flower on it before. So this came out of a package from Moonglow Gardens that was mixed pepper plants. So I don't actually know. Maybe I'll write Ash and ask her if she knows what kind of pepper plant this is, but I've never seen a purple flower before. I cannot take credit for this beautiful pepper that is hanging down right here, because this pepper plant I actually purchased at a local nursery. It is a golden cayenne pepper, and I'm hoping to make my own Frank's hot sauce this year. So I grew quite a few cayenne pepper plants. So I have a couple of different varieties of these cayenne peppers, and I'm hoping to make a Frank's hot sauce style hot sauce, because that's my favorite and basically the only kind of hot sauce I can tolerate. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to see that little pepper there. So all in all, I am super thrilled with how the high tunnel is looking. I will say, just to give you guys an update on the water feature situation I had going on in here the other day, I left my hose running when I was filling up my black tank that I have back there the other night, and I flooded my high tunnel. And when I was filming a YouTube video, I brought you guys down here to show you what I just showed you about how happy I was with it, and I found it completely flooded. This whole entire row was flooded. The water actually came all the way to the top of the, or just about to the top of the weed barrier there. So it was actually almost 6 inches of water in the middle, and then it came all the way around here and about 3/4 of the way down this pathway. I have really good drainage here. When Dan built this platform basically for the high tunnel to sit on, it actually has a slope down that side, and the soil is quite sandy. So there's really good drainage here. So when I came down here, probably 2 or 3 hours after I filmed that video, all the water was gone. I know that's hard to believe with the amount of water that was in here, but all of the water was gone. There's still lots of moisture, so you can see my footprints from walking across there in the ground, but it's not soggy or mushy or anything. And thankfully, because I have raised beds in my high tunnel, the plants were not affected in any negative way. The water actually just kind of seeped in underneath the beds, and so they got a nice deep watering, which is fantastic. So no harm done with that mistake, so that's good. And I don't know if I showed you guys that I put sheep's wool down halfway down this bed. That was the last of what I had, but I wanted to test it as a mulch in the high tunnel because it obviously dries out fairly quickly with the raised beds. The raised beds do have their benefits, but they do tend to dry out more quickly than if they were on the level ground. So I added that to see if I can't help to retain some moisture. I'm pretty sure that it's going to work. And honestly, I'm somebody who loves the smell of raw wool. So when I opened up the doors here, when we just came in, I could smell the combination of the raw wool combined with just the smell of the high tunnel. So really, really nice, and really the perfect combination of smells for me. So we're now into the forest garden, and this is a space that I feel like is both a win and maybe is also suffering a little bit of neglect. There is a task that I need to do here in the forest garden that I wanted to show you. I have shown this in the past, in years past, but I have not showed it this year, and I have talked about it, so I wanted to show you what I'm going to do. So this plant, this big giant plant that you can see it better from over here. This is the largest my comfrey has ever grown. So I am just about 5'9", and you can see that this is just about at the height that I am. So absolutely stunning comfrey. Is starting to flower now. The bumblebees are absolutely thrilled with it. But the reason that I grow comfrey under my fruit trees is actually to use as a mulch. When it first started growing, when I planted it in here, so the second or third year, I used to actually come and cut it down and lay it down around my fruit trees. But a couple of years ago, I decided to stomp it down, because this actually folds over quite easily. I'll show you in a second. So that it would make a big circle around my fruit trees, but that the flowers that grow on the tips of the branches could still bloom for the bumblebees, because this is probably the bumblebee's favorite plant in my garden. So, and then by cutting it off, of course, I would kill those flowers. And even though the comfrey would come up again, as far as the leaves, it didn't usually flower again a second time. So by stomping it down like I'm going to show you right now, I have the added benefit of using it as a mulch around my fruit trees, which is what its real purpose is, and still feed the bumblebees too. So let me show you how I do it. And hopefully I don't get stuck. So I just fold it over like so. And you can see how easily it folds over. It always makes me a little sad to stomp down the comfrey because it looks so beautiful, but this works so beautifully as a mulch. And as this foliage dies back in the fall, it'll break down and feed the plant as well, or the tree. So it's a really wonderful plant. So I have to go do that around all my fruit trees because I have comfrey planted around all of them. Happily, I do have a comfrey down there that is not around my fruit trees, so I'm going to leave that one to grow up and look beautiful and jungle-like. I also grow rhubarb around the base of my fruit trees as well, but I let that grow just normally and naturally, and then it dies back in the fall and does the same thing as far as fertilizing around the base of the trees. All right, friends, on that note, I am going to close out today's video, and I just want to end it with an encouragement to any of you who are at a stage of life or a season in life where maybe you can't do things the way that you would like to, or you have to push some things to the back burner, or maybe you have to quit doing something altogether. It is okay. Life is very cyclical. There are just times in life where it is like that, and it will come back around again. So I hope that you have a fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye, everyone.